March 21st, 2026. Well, we're now into the fourth week of the war. And, well, things are going about like they were going before in some ways. However, if you refer to my previous video on Kharg Island and my point there, I notice that's getting a lot more play in the public discussion right now. And we are seeing yet another Marine expeditionary group on the way with appropriate ships. Meanwhile, President Trump is saying no to ground troops, but why are ground troops moving into the area? Oh, well. Well, maybe that's part of the strategic deception for Iran, right? I discussed this thing pretty much, but with only 114 followers. I hope we can get some more pretty soon. I don't suspect that the Iranians are actually following what I'm saying somehow. I don't think they're that tuned in to me. So I think I can present what I want here without any risk to the compromising our possibilities. However, when we see people who are in the establishment of the administration and on major networks talking about this, I don't feel too comfortable about that. At any rate, that's one thing that's playing on here. The air bombardment's going on pretty much. We are seeing a little bit of a short divergence between U.S. and Israeli objectives with the Israeli attack on the gas field and then the responding series of drone attacks missile attacks on production facilities of our Arab friends. That was not, and I think that Trump kind of pushed back on that one. Meanwhile, our friends on the Napolitano intelligence review are saying for sure that Trump was behind this, and I really doubt it. Honestly, to say that nobody in the U.S. military, of course somebody in the U.S. military knew it was happening, but that doesn't mean we approved it or it was staffed with us or went all the way up to the White House or even to the Secretary of War. I suspect it was more at the level of, that they just did it and somebody said, what's Israel doing? Oh, that's what they're hitting. Because, after all, a lot of things could be going in that direction. But anyhow, and I know there's a deconfliction group, but I think, anyway, I think we've kind of hopefully put a kibosh on that stuff because we don't want too much of the energy infrastructure of the whole Persian Gulf region on either side of the Gulf to be destroyed, or the possibility of getting the world economy back to something normal anytime soon is going to be a bit of a problem. So anyhow, so that's kind of my thought on that. As to when this, right now, they are moving in the direction of trying to create a situation to open the strait, mainly bringing in A-10s and helicopters, which in a way is a little reminiscent of things that the Russians have done against Ukrainian sea drones and the like. And they've had some trouble with this. We'll see if we run into the same problem that they had. I think the A-10 is a little bit more hardened than anything they were using. So in terms of, small missiles and stuff, I don't know. We'll see how that all goes. But the idea, if we can chew up those things and try to perfect a protective shield. And of course, the other thing is ongoing airstrikes to try to knock out the missile sites and so forth. They may have almost endless supply of drones, however. That's a whole other situation. And we'll have to see how that goes. So if you like these videos, please give me a like, subscribe, and click the bell for notification. And you can also follow me on Rumble if you prefer that site. So, yeah, that's my general pitch. I still keep thinking back to my video from 4 weeks ago on the edge of war, where I really was expressing some real reservations about what was about to happen. And in fact, I'd recorded that before I actually knew it was going to happen. In fact, it actually went public, of course, the morning, several hours after the first wave of attacks had gone in. But so I was not aware that was that imminent. I knew it was very close. And as we've seen, well, the admiral that was removed from the planning staff before the war broke out probably made some good points about what was likely to happen, and perhaps somebody didn't want to hear that, huh? And but nonetheless, as I've said before, we also are committed now. We have to find some way to get to some kind of a successful end here. Otherwise, the whole Western world is in a state of disaster, basically. And I don't think this is something anybody that's at all loyal to the United States and our values would want to have happen. And this has a lot of impact on such things as our East Asian allies, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, particularly. Um, and um, and of course, this will be a bit of a boon, I think, to the Russians for the time being, because their oil is in demand and most of it's available, and we need to find some way to kind of back the Ukrainians off of attacking it too. And that's another problem we've got. But there's no real practical alternative source until we can get the straits opened. And even then, there's going to be a significant time to ramp things up. So we'll have to see how that goes. So that's kind of the look I have at the moment. We are doing an incredible amount of damage to the Iranian regime. In fact, the people in the government are beginning to see the paradox. We've killed so much of their leadership that who do we have left to negotiate with? And particularly, who has enough authority to say stop? And I think that becomes the problem, as I've said before. I think that one hope that some people have put forward is the idea that by focusing on attacking the IRGC and the security establishment, that maybe there could become a split between that and the regular Iranian army, which might rebel against the Ayatollahs and their friends, and be in a position to negotiate something. But so far, there's no sign of that, nor is there any real sign of a real popular rebellion from the street that has been advocated. And I think that was one of the major miscalculations, that somehow the country was fundamentally near rebellion, and all we had to do is just push it a little bit, and it would all fall apart, and the current problems we have wouldn't be occurring because the people would have rallied and taken things over. But when so much of the infrastructure of the country is being blown up, exactly what building do you march on, anyhow? I mean, the other day, apparently the Israelis had a drone and actually attacked a policeman directing traffic, which is probably not my point is, are you just trying to promote absolute anarchy? And that would then lead to a situation like we had in Afghanistan, if we recall, which led to a lot of problems, if we recall. And this one is, several times bigger than Afghanistan in population. So, at any rate, that's kind of my read on the subject. We keep hoping for the best here. The question is, how do you get this thing to end? On one side, we don't know what our ammunition stocks are, and furthermore, we don't know, after this is over, if it is over, how well will we be prepared for other contingencies that might show up? I mean, so far the Chinese haven't gotten spun up to do anything because, one thing, their oil supply is at risk. And that gets back to the Kharg Island thing. As I said, it's a dangerous thing. It could end up becoming a high casualty affair to try to take the place. The other thing is, what happens after you take it? If we actually shut down the shipments, one thought is, effectively, we could be shutting down oil shipments to China. If we can also, the other places you'd usually go for large volumes of oil, I suspect, would be, the Arab countries, which are currently having the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. What else do we do? I guess the U.S. is a big country, but presumably we're not going to supply China to make up for their losses. We could kind of, if nothing else, embargo that one. If nothing else, anything we might export, we'd rather send to our friends in Japan and South Korea, Taiwan, rather than to mainland China. So that could put them in a bit of an energy bind, I think, which, of course, would solidify, I think, their relationship with Russia a little bit more than it has been. And, of course, and that could lead to a lot of things. I mean, so far we haven't seen the introduction of actual Chinese high-tech weapons into the Russian arsenal, for instance. They've presumably not done that to avoid economic sanctions from the United States, but if things break down so much that that's inevitable anyhow, how about Russians flying 100 J-20s to bomb targets inside of Ukraine? Currently their aircraft would get shot down if they tried to fly over that. But a stealthier airplane might be able to do it, or the missiles that they have. for offensive purposes, particularly. I'm talking about. I mean, there have been attacks on Russian war production plants, which might have done some real damage. The Flamingo attack on that one plant may have done some real damage, and of course, the trouble Russia has is so much their production capacity is in the area that's roughly in range of Ukraine, you see, not so much over in Siberia. And so that's another possibility that if this thing goes in a certain way, for the moment, we're apparently just letting the oil go from Iran to China and Pakistan and so forth, in order to keep the global oil prices under control. And so that's a current policy. The thought of taking Kharg Island would be so we would have some say over whether oil went somewhere or not. And the idea would be that can continue if you quit shooting at tankers coming out of the Arab countries. So that's kind of the situation at the moment, and we'll just have to kind of keep touch with what all is happening. Politically, Trump's poll numbers are down a few points because of this, and they weren't good going into it, which is one of my main objections to this whole thing, is that, we needed to focus on the domestic front, and now the economy is being damaged. The last producer price index was looking a little bit not so good. And it's hard to know if the Fed starts doing things like actually increasing interest rates, they'll throw the country into recession for sure. And that is not a productive thing for us from my point of view. Understand, I'm coming at this from a conservative Republican point of view, which means it's an anti-Democrat party point of view. And so I consider this to be of the highest significance, not so much some of the other things people are most focused on. So anyhow, I think we're moving into a bit of a bind here in that sense, and we'll have to see how it goes. Well, at any rate, that's about it for that. I will, of course, mention something else, that, of course, General McCaslin, who disappeared around the same time, like a day before the war broke out, is still missing with no sign of him or his body. So that will be something to kind of keep track of. And so I'll be wrapping this one up for now. As always, I'll be posting this on YouTube and Rumble, and the addresses of my social media accounts are in the description below. So all for this time.